Ms Don.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. I am proud of the actions that Scotland has taken to tackle child poverty and the further measures announced by the Cabinet Secretary today, which I know will have a real impact on people's lives. However, I will not be content until every child in Scotland is free from the grips of poverty. Every child deserves the right to 3 meals a day. Every child deserves a warm home. Every child deserves to have a decent standard of living, and that is the bare minimum. Every child also deserves to enjoy their childhood and not be dragged down by the stigma and the anxiety that poverty inevitably brings. Child poverty is only set to worsen through the cost of living crisis we're now experiencing. Food bills are rising rapidly, and this alone will result in more families making difficult choices, and the reliance on food banks will only increase. The energy price hikes, according to Ofgem, will see direct debit customers see their bills soar by an average of £693, and prepayment customers will see an increase of £708 a year. Now, breaking that down to a minimum of about £57 per month, I honestly don't know how people are going to manage. For the people struggling with these bills, we're predicted to see a huge increase in levels of debt. And for those on prepayment meters, we could see people going without electricity for days. Now, if any members don't know what it's like to wake up and get ready for school on a cold morning when your power's ran out, let me tell you, it ain't fun. And this is only going to become a more regular occurrence for children in all of our constituencies. Now, we've heard today some of the increased measures that the Scottish Government are taking to address child poverty. However, I genuinely fear that no matter what policies we implement, no matter how much money we invest for the children in our country, these will always be counteracted by the cruel Tory government policies implemented at Westminster. And the audacity of some of the opposition members in this chamber just blows me away. During one of the biggest crises our people have ever faced, yesterday's spring statement was a chance for the Tories to take a different path. They could have scrapped the 10% national insurance hike. They could have followed the SNP's lead and uprated benefits by 6%, matched the SNP's Scottish child payment and made it UK-wide, and in turn giving additional financial resources to protect and increase our spending on social security. They could have reversed the cut to universal credit, reversed the decision to scrap the triple lock, and they could have introduced a windfall tax on energy companies' excessive profits and put that money back into the pockets of people struggling to keep the lights on. But instead, Presiding Officer, they did nothing. Parliament should aim to be representative of society, but in Westminster, 29% of MPs are privately educated compared to just 7% of the general population. Now, how can we possibly expect these MPs to understand the hardships faced by working families when more than a quarter of them have been brought up completely sheltered from working class and impoverished families? How can we then expect these same people to have the slightest incline as to what these families experience on a daily basis? Perhaps the UK Chancellor could take a minute away from one of his luxury villas or his fancy yachts and come to my constituency and live on the money that he's expecting our children to live on. He wouldn't last 5 minutes, I'm sure. Now, the UN have openly condemned the UK government for their austerity agenda that blatantly targets those that need our help the most. Meanwhile, we have Tories that have the brass neck to smile for photos at our food banks. Do they realise it's their fault that they continue to exist at all? And they have the powers to end food poverty right now so that no child or parent has to go through that experience. Over the last decade or so, food banks have become normalised in our society, but they are not normal and they never should be. They are a failure of the UK political system. Now, I focus today on the Conservative Party in relation to food banks, but I should give an honourable mention to the Lib Dems who propped up the austerity agenda and went into bed with a Conservative government. And of course, we cannot forget our friends in the Labour Party that when in government brought food banks into existence in the first place. Now in Scotland, the SNP are doing what we can to protect children. The devolution of the child disability payment, for example, will mean that we have a system here in Scotland that will ensure children entitled to CDP are treated with dignity and respect. But like all other devolved social security, we're at the mercy of Tory fiscal decision-making. If they choose to slash spending on social security, that will directly impact the financial resources that Scotland has available. And there is only so much we can do here to mitigate that without the full fiscal powers of independence. If the Scottish Tories have any credibility left, they will go back to their Chancellor in London and implore him to deliver the policies and reverse the cuts and national insurance hike that the SNP are calling for. It is not too late. If Westminster are not prepared to take action, then they should devolve the necessary powers to Scotland so that we have the fiscal autonomy to deal with this issue. Or better yet, they should not stand in Scotland's way when this Parliament calls for an independence referendum. Now, I suspect the opposition will be rolling their eyes at this, but it's time that they wake up to the reality. The only way we can protect Scotland's future, Scotland's children, is by having the levers that every other independent country possess. With these powers, we can ensure that child poverty in Scotland becomes something that is only present in history books. In conclusion, Presiding Officer, our Scottish Government is doing all within its powers and resources to tackle child poverty, and the policies and steps laid out in the Child Poverty Action Plan will be crucial going forward. However, the true powers to address child poverty remain with Westminster, and I look forward to the day where an independent Scotland puts an end to child poverty and poverty in all of its forms, once and for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms.